We're a culture that loves celebrities. People would do all kinds of things to become famous. We have famous actors, famous athletes, and famous authors. Some people have become famous because of their contributions to society. Some people go so far as to commit crimes to become famous. And nowadays, some people become famous for no reason at all. Rachel Carson, born in 1907, became famous as a conservationist. She loved nature from the time she was a child when, with her mom, she explored the outdoors, observing and learning about animals. As an adult, her writings, especially her book Silent Spring, significantly impacted not only society and government policy in her day, but how we live and think about the environment today. She changed the world through her writing, and it made her famous enough to write a book about it. On a Farther Shore, written by William Souder, was published in 2012 by Crown Publishers on the 50th anniversary of Silent Spring, the groundbreaking book written by Rachel Carson, which brought awareness to people about the uncontrolled use as well as the side effects of the harmful effect chemical pesticide DDT. Rachel Carson, even as a child, was an idealist, with a deep love of nature who wanted to make a difference in the world. She had always wanted to be a writer, studying English in college, but through the influence of her biology professor, she changed her major to biology, saying, "I don't have much imagination. Biology has given me something to write about." Carson had always been fascinated by the sea, and in college and as a young adult, had written many stories for magazines about the sea or having the sea as a setting. But she wanted a book that would capture her fascination with it. So, using more than 1,000 sources from many different experts to give their insight into the history and science of the sea, she wrote the book that made her literary reputation, The Sea Around Us. Even after years of writing and research, the book didn't sell at first, but once it was published as a series in The New Yorker, everyone became fascinated not only with the sea, but with Carson. Her book was republished and sales took off. The Sea Around Us was on the bestseller list after only 4 weeks. It was translated into 18 languages and sold 1 million copies. Sauter writes that Carson's particular genius was in making science come so alive that the reader did not think of it as science. The ocean was always a story to Carson, and she told it like one. She began at the beginning with a quote from Genesis, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep." Perhaps seeing no contradiction between the biblical explanation of creation and the one she proceeded to offer, which was all about physics, geology, and biochemistry, on a roiling, evolving planet that has taken billions of years to become itself. The success of The Sea Around Us made it financially possible for Carson to write and publish her next book, The Edge of the Sea. This time, Carson used her own fieldwork, explaining not only about the science, but writing a story of the beauty of the seashore, the primeval meeting place of earth and water. It was her fame from The Sea Around Us that brought her book Silent Spring to the attention of President John F. Kennedy at a time of major social change and global tension. The Sea Around Us, published at a time when Americans were afraid of nuclear war and distressed at the tragic birth defects caused by a drug that had been prescribed to thousands of mothers, thalidomide, documented the deadly effects of the chemical pesticide DDT. DDT had been created during World War II. The U.S. Army had used it on millions of people, from delousing refugees during the war and to stopping the typhus epidemic in Naples in 1943. The creator of DDT even won the Nobel Prize for it in 1948. DDT was thought to be a miracle solution for everything from insect extermination to cleaning your family. Airplanes sprayed millions of acres of land with DDT to get rid of crop-destroying insects. People handled DDT, putting it even on their own lawns to get rid of pests. DDT was also a common additive in soap, furniture polish, paint, fabric treatments, and other everyday household products. In 1955, the World Health Organization hoped to eliminate malaria in Europe and North America by using DDT. By the end of the 1950s, the U.S. was using almost 80 million pounds of DDT every year. That's 1.4 million cubic feet, enough DDT to fill a 3-story building built on top of 1.5 football fields, the size of Noah's Ark. But scientists and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service began to be concerned about the effects of DDT. Carson showed how dispersed substances like DDT contaminate the environment and the whole global ecosystem. Silent Spring documented the effects of DDT, showing that this pesticide was not only harming and killing birds and animals, but humans as well. She warned people that ongoing use of such substances would bring about a global silent spring. Through her work, The Silent Spring, Carson played a key role in stopping the use of DDT. In the early 60s, John F. Kennedy asked the Department of Agriculture to evaluate the impact of DDT. He was the first president to do anything like that. During Nixon's years in office, strict guidelines for pesticides became the rule over federal lands. Although people may think this was her major contribution, Carson was an outspoken advocate of conservation on a wider scale, using her writings and her public appearances to communicate the need for greater efforts on every level to protect the world around us. Her involvement in and writing about the Parker River, Carson helped to make wildlife conservation a public conversation. She was instrumental in bringing the Parker River Wildlife Refuge into existence. Through the 300 national refuges now in existence, many endangered species have recovered. Rachel Carson can take a lot of credit for that. I have grown up in a different era, in a generation very aware of the dangers of chemicals, very conscious of ecology, very committed to the conservation of nature and natural resources. I had no idea the extent of the extensive use of DDT during my parents' childhood years, or of a time in our society when these things were not valued. It helps me to appreciate what we have even more. Although my mom has written a book, and I have written a lot of papers, I had no idea what was involved in becoming an author. Carson gathered her information and ideas from so many different scientists. It took her years to research and write her first book. Then she was rejected many times before someone took the risk of publishing it. It was really interesting to me that it wasn't even a book that made her successful, it was a magazine. The strategy of breaking up her book into a series in a popular magazine was a smart way to get her book, and Carson as a person, into the limelight so that people could be influenced by her writing. A lot of people nowadays work hard at being famous. Everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame, whether that's getting on America's Got Talent, even if you have no talent, or becoming famous for being famous, like the Kardashians, or even making your own YouTube videos. But Rachel Carson wasn't trying to be famous. She was trying to help people, and society, to see their world with new eyes. And she did. By the early 1960s, she was a best-selling author. She fulfilled her childhood dream, not only to become a writer, but also to do good in the world. Through her exhaustive research, excellent writing, and perseverance towards her goal, Rachel Carson, despite her frumpy looks, achieved the kind of fame worth having. Rachel Carson became famous for doing good, not only in the world, but for the world around us.